Welcome to the Service to Syndication podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world who have worn the uniform of this great country, those who provide services to our men and women in uniform, and other service-oriented professionals to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer your dreams and goals in real estate and to use this wealth creation vehicle so you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of generosity and prosperity. If what you desire is time, lifestyle, and financial freedom, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, the knowledge, experience, skills, so you can go out and crush it in whatever real estate asset class you desire. So grab a pencil and paper, sit back, and enjoy the ride on the Service to Syndication podcast. Hello, my servicemen and women and other service providers. Welcome to another episode of the Service to Syndication Real Estate podcast. I am your host, Cedric Marlow, and I am a U.S. Navy vet. Here on the Service to Syndication Real Estate podcast, we interview the most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world, where most have donned the uniforms of our great country. We aim to provide the tool sets, the mindset, skill sets for you to achieve your personal and business goals while using real estate as a wealth creation vehicle to help you live a more successful, happy, and fun-filled life. I am super excited today because I have with me Mr. Kevin Lillis, who is a top-notch investor and expert in the hospitality space. But before I properly introduce our exciting guest to you, I want to ask a favor of you. Please, if you get some value out of this interview, if you get some type of insight, mindset shift, if you learn a new skill, new information, receive inspiration or motivation to go out and take some action and make some progress in your life, please share this episode with your friends. Send it to someone you know who might be or could be interested in real estate. Share it on your social media, post it on your wall, or share it in your stories. Help us spread our message while you help others. And for all of you who share this episode, I want to say thank you. Again, everyone, I have with me Mr. Kevin Lillis. He is the CEO of Hospitality Alliance and has over 24 years experience in the hospitality and real estate industries. Hospitality Alliance is overseeing the master planning for the 200,000 square foot repositioning of the Jersey City Waterfront for McCallie Realty, developed and is managing a 18,000 square foot food hall in Fort Worth, and launched the Beyond Food campaign for MasterCard, and overseeing the development of the food hall and beer garden at AT&T Discovery District headquarters campus in downtown Dallas. Previously, Kevin was the head of real estate, food and beverage, and only U.S.-based executive for Sahara, the majority owner of the iconic Plaza Hotel and Dream downtown in Manhattan. Kevin was the sole representative for Sahara, overseeing the Todd English Food Hall, the Plaza Food Hall, Palm Court Restaurant, Champagne Bar, Rose Bar, and the retail spaces totaling over 165,000 square feet. Prior to this time at the Plaza, Lillis spent 5 years as the executive vice president of food and beverage and real estate for what was then the largest private owner of hotels in New York City, Hampshire Hotels. Projects there included the creation and launching of Dream Downtown Hotel, Dream South Beach, the Chateau Hotel, and many others. Kevin is also the founder and CEO of New England Sports Marketing Group. He produced the first legally sanctioned mixed martial arts event in New York State history in May of 2013, as well as the first MMA event in Madison Square Garden history in November of 2014, setting the record for the largest non-boxing combat sports event in New York history. Kevin has produced sporting events for a television audience exceeding 120 million households. Wow. Kevin, all right. First off, welcome. And the first thing I like to do with my guests is kind of summarize your professional career, if you can, in 75 seconds or less.
I think it's my career is about taking care of people. My career is about seeing synergies. I think as you develop your career, it's something that I think what's helped me be successful is some of my cross training, some of the fact that I did bounce around. I think I kind of had a vision for what I like to do, and I focused on things I like to do, which included being a partner in Friday Night Fights and starting to do those events. And I think at times others in my life might not have seen what I was moving towards, but it's something that later in my career is what set me apart. As AT&T purchased Time Warner and became the biggest entertainment company in the world, I was at the top of the list for them to be their partner and create the campus. And that was because I had already done Madison Square Garden, and I'd already done these 200 plus events with Friday Night Fights and set up these things for activation. So it was one that at the time, I think my wife and my father and others around me, like, why are you doing this fight stuff when you're a real estate guy, when you're a hospitality guy? And I loved it. I was an ex-martial artist, and I was passionate about it, and I was learning. And you never know when a lesson that you're learning is going to become valuable in another, seemingly unrelated area. So I would say just following any area where you can learn, keeping that learning curve as sharp as you can, and doing what you love. And I think it took me to a place where I'm in a very unique space, but it's the combination of the things that I'm passionate about and love to do. So I think I'm blessed and very lucky to be here.
Wow, Friday Night Fights. I remember that. Man, around what year was that? Because I remember that.
That was, it was an amazing promotion. We were a block west of Columbus Circle in New York, and we were doing it every month, and there was a line out the door. And those were the days before TV really took it down, because it became so expensive to film in HD and then even more to do 4K. And it became something that Spike and ESPN and some of these networks were putting on fantastic programming in HD that people could watch from home on their couch with the $2 beer of their choice that they bought from the grocery store. And it became really, really tough for the live sports sector to compete. But I was there before that, when it was a line out the door and all the fight fans of the Northeast, getting their fix of their favorite sport in person every month. So that was great for me in the restaurant sector, because it's something that event guests are a lot more forgiving. And it's basically like doing 200 events like that is like doing 200 restaurants. You open up and the bar's in the wrong place, and you don't have enough trash cans, you don't have enough bussers, but at least they're event guests, so they're more forgiving with it. But each time you walk around, you're like, I learned that, I did that wrong, I did that wrong, I did that wrong, not doing that again. And it gives you an opportunity to get better.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. So you've had an impressive career spanning real estate, hospitality, and even sports marketing. What initially drew you to these industries, and how did your career evolve over time?
I think I just always have filled my playbook. I kind of always had my thing that paid the bills and the things I was passionate about. And, at any time when I'm overloaded, which I often am, my wife reminds me that I have no one to blame but myself, because anytime I have space in my life, I immediately start filling it. Had a little bit of time in the last 6 weeks. So now I'm coaching my daughter's soccer team, and I'm learning how to be a soccer coach. And I think that's how my career's been, where it's been that I was head of real estate at Dream, but, wasn't competing in martial arts anymore, and realized there was a gap. And I thought fighters weren't being represented the way they needed to be. Before mixed martial arts was legal in New York, fighters were fighting without blood work, fighting without doctors, fighting without ambulances. So it's something that, we had one where in our second event, a very famous fighter from the UFC's brother was supposed to fight an opponent who went to his blood work and tested positive for HIV. You know, if it wasn't for us making it be legal and taking the leap, you know, those guys would still be fighting that way. And you get hurt, you just grab a cab and go to the ER and say you got jumped, was the way it used to work in New York. So it's something that I've just kind of always been rather fearless, borderline reckless with doing what I was passionate about. And I think was lucky enough to win more than I lost.
I'll just say this, you know, telling them to hop in a cab, go to the hospital, just tell them you got jumped. Okay, we're talking New York. Okay, so that's kind of acceptable, you know.
Yeah.
Not knocking New York. I love New York. I
just happened to be in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gi. Yeah, that's what I was wearing down the street. Just sitting here with my with my Muay Thai shorts and my yeah, I just got jumped. Absolutely.
All right, so real estate investment banking to overseeing major hospitality projects. How has your financial background shaped your approach to hospitality development and operations?
I think in career development in general, you need to do the building blocks first. And that to me is what real estate investment bank was. I think if I flipped my career around, it would not have gone nearly as well. Whereas I don't think you would get good at hospitality or at event planning and then, you know, 8-10 years in, let's really understand financial building blocks and do a whole ton of Excel work and understanding what ROI means and what an investor wants to see and how someone at a corporate institution is going to read my P&L and all those sorts of things. And those are things that, you know, when I've mentored people or had people, you know, family members, I'm like, you need to get those building blocks the first 5 years, regardless, whether you're going to be in real estate or finance or insurance. You need to understand how investment works, how money flows in, how money flows out, all those sorts of things. Because if you're not fundamentally sound, it's just a pipe dream. You know, the things I'm doing in hospitality, the things I've done in events, if it's just fun and not financially sound, you're not going to be doing it for very long. So I think I'm, you know, very lucky in that coming out of school at 21, I started, you know, I paid my way through school working at a real estate law firm. So I had kind of already had that legal background by the time I was 21 and then started real estate investment banking. And I'm, again, lucky in that those are the two of the biggest things that are my weaknesses. I hated doing those things. I hate doing those things. But if you want to become really successful, and I've said this to a lot of people in my company, that I think a lot of people have the mindset of, you know, these are my strengths and that's what I play to. And that's just not who I am. Well, if that's just not who you are, you're only going to get so far. You can't, you have to be passable at your weaknesses and great at your strengths. You can't just be horrible at your weaknesses and not work on them and just having a glaring hole in your game and figure you're still going to, you know, be exceptional and excel. And, you know, so I think that's where I started my career in those things. And that's been the thing that's probably the number one thing that sets me apart from some of the others in my sector, is that I was lucky enough to have this, you know, institutional level kind of legal background and then finance real estate background. And that is, you know, that frames the way I look at a real estate deal. That frames the way I look at hospitality development, already having those backbones and those foundation pieces.
Okay. Now, what's a pivotal moment in your career that significantly influenced the way you do business today?
I mean, COVID sure as heck was. The Great Recession certainly was. I think I would say a pivotal moment is my wife was at GE Capital. And she was a GE Capital asset management of the real estate side. And they started letting people go when they got purchased by Blackstone. And I just saw the same thing with AT&T as they sold off to DirecTV. And I saw it earlier with my uncle when he was with JP Morgan. And I think the thing I learned through all of those is that you have to invest in yourself and not a company. You have to work on your own skill set. People focusing on what their title is in this company, and I'm a senior vice president, and now I'm a vice president. It doesn't matter. What are the skill sets? What is on your utility belt? What are the tools you have that you're taking with you? That's the stuff you're going to take with you for life. Well, here I'm an SVP, whereas there I'm a VP. It doesn't matter. You are who you are. Be invest in yourself, be good at what you do. These people that, I saw people at GE who had learned this one software program that only GE was using. And they had 20 years of this one asset management recording program, and they were experts at it. And now it's obsolete. It goes over to Blackstone, and they have big salaries, and we don't use that program. Well, doing things in a path for yourself, for your family, as opposed to having a level of loyalty to a company that largely is going to have loyalty to their stockholders, and giving them the same loyalty they're going to give you.
I totally agree. I could not agree any more with you on that one, because that same very thing like really happened in my life. Back some years ago, I was with this company. They put me through school and everything, and I'm like, okay, they just spent all of this money on me. There's no way, like, I'm gonna be here. The word came down where they were bringing in the hatchet lady to start chopping away at jobs. I'm like, you guys just paid for an MBA. I know I'm safe. I was not safe,
Sure.
But in that time, I invested in myself by going to get that MBA, learning new skills and things like that. And where honestly, I bounced back relatively quickly as compared to some other people who, didn't invest in themselves and, thought they would be at this company for their life, because this company had been in business over 100 years. There's no way it's going to close down. Big refinery in Philadelphia, like, it's not going to close. There's no way. And it did, So yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. Yeah.
I just watched it with AT&T. When I started with them, they had 310,000 employees. Now they have 140. They have people that have been with there 30, 40 years. That company's so old, their ticker symbol's T. They're founded by Alexander Bell. And they're like, there's no way this company's going to get cut in half in a matter of 4 years. But they do. And it's one of those things that, I spent a lot of time with my family this weekend because my father turned 75, and they're talking about one guy was with Pfizer for 40 years. And my great grandfather was with GE for 40 years. Those days are over. Those days are over. And you have to invest in yourself, and you have to have your own path. And when your path aligns with a company, that's great, but you can't be all into a point of letting them take you to a place where whatever you're learning there might not be something you could transfer over. To what level of is your skill set ones that you can, I think of the Al Pacino, Robert De Niro Heat, what can you pack up in a bag and take with you in 30 seconds? Like, what's in your head? How good are you?
Yes.
The way I say to my people is your fastball fast? Does your curveball curve? It's not about what your title is. Is your fastball fast? Does your slider slide? And those.
I love that analogy. I like it. I like it a lot. So
you go to the gun, you're like, it's going 90. Well, that's going to be home run derby. You're not getting any strikeouts with that one.
Absolutely not.
You got to get a couple more ticks on that gun.
So Hospitality Alliance has been involved in some transformative projects, including the Jersey City Waterfront and the AT&T Discovery District. What's your approach to master planning and revitalizing large-scale properties?
A big part of it is first to understand, I think of it in terms of fish in the pond. And a lot of times when you're working with wealthy developers, they see the project for themselves, and you really have to understand what's in the community first. And you have to be able to really take yourself to the guest level and walk around with them. And what do they want to see? What are the gaps? You have to listen to the market. It's not about giving the market what you want. It's about giving the market what they need. And reality is if you give the market what they need, they're going to reward you with loyalty. If you're just going into the project to make money and that's your goal and that's your sole focus, you're not going to make any money. You need to go into the project with the integrity and focus of you're creating this experience that the community needs. And if you do that and you do it accurately, you're going to get rewarded by loyalty and you're going to get rewarded with financial success, but it's not the other way around. So, for us, we also did, we created the San Antonio Spurs world headquarters. So $500 million project, we did that one. And the reason they picked us was because we were so custom. We weren't going down there saying, these are our brands and we're going to, shoehorn this brand in there regardless of what the fit is. It was San Antonio's different than Dallas and different than Houston and different than Chicago. Get down there, spend time, see what the market is. You know, they want this kind of food. They want that kind of a price point. This is their weather versus this weather. It's not so much of the chains that you see failing. TGI Fridays, Hooters, you know, the list is Outback. You know, I think there's another dozen that have declared bankruptcy in the last month. It's that one size fits all kind of concept. So, you know, to do mixed use development, you really have to understand your guest and your community, and you really have to put yourself in their shoes of what their journey is through the spaces and what the experience is, and recognizing they're a different guest different times of the week. You know, they're going to have different spending habits a Tuesday afternoon versus Friday night when they're out with their family, you know, or Saturday when they're just out there to watch the Spurs game. So a lot of it is really being very deliberate of putting yourself in their shoes and trying to listen.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned that as well, because I just interviewed a Jill Ferrari, who's a developer in the Michigan area, kind of closer to Metro Detroit. And she said the same exact thing. You know, when she takes on these projects, she goes to the community. She listens to the community. You know, everyone's not going to be happy. Everyone's not going to get what they want, but you listen, you get a buy-in from the community, and you add those things that, you know, that's feasible anyway. And I totally agree with, yeah, you got to do it. And you have to do it in order to get that buy-in.
And you have to get the demographics. You have to get to the universal truths, you know, and for me, the universal truths start with the demographics. And that's the one that I found is the easiest to start to build from. You know, I love San Antonio because even Texas is one of the fastest growing states in the country, and San Antonio is the fastest growing MSA in Texas. So Dallas has greater growth on a big level, on a gross numbers level, on a percentage level. San Antonio is growing even faster. It's young people, you know? So I love that growth because it's young people. I don't want to cater to me, you know, in my 40s. I'm not going to be spending for that much longer. I want to go where the 20-year-olds are going. So that's where being in the cities, where if you're 25 and you're going to have a family and you're going to invest in that community, now you're going to raise your kids there. I want to go where the 25-year-olds are. If you want to be successful for the next 20, 30 years, don't bet on 50-year-olds. Bet on 25-year-olds. Go with the math. They're going to be there longer. Their kids are going to be going there. Like they're in a one-bedroom apartment now. Well, they're going to get married and they're going to have kids. And they're going to be buying a 3-bedroom home, and their kids are going to be going to the community. They're going to be going out for burgers on Friday night. Well, I want to sell them those burgers, you know?
Right. So absolutely.
That's where a huge part of it is those demographics.
I will say I'm highly offended right now. Don't go for the 50-year-olds.
Oh, if you're making a 20-year business bet, don't make it on 50-year-olds. Make a 20, 30-year investment bet where the 22-year-olds are going. That's where it's gonna be. Where you're like, they're gonna grow up there. They're gonna make more money. They're gonna have more disposable income. They're gonna reinvest in their community. You know, and it's the day old, you know, buy low, sell high. You know, if you want to be ahead of the curve, go where young people are going. Invest where young people are going. Focus on where young people are going. Numbers might not look as great right now, you know, but they're going to make more money. That 22-year-old in 10 years, inevitably, is going to be a 32-year-old.
Yeah. So you've worked with some of the most iconic properties in New York, such as the Plaza Hotel. How do you balance honoring a property's legacy while innovating to meet modern hospitality demands?
That was a tough one. You know, the first day I walked into the Plaza, I was running it, and it was wild. I mean, I was pinching myself, and like people were saying to me, you know, you're from New York. You've obviously been to the Plaza before. I didn't grow up like that. I mean, I grew up going to Chili's on my birthday. I wasn't going to the Plaza Hotel. And my first time ever setting foot, I was the guy. And my boss was in jail in India. So I was alone in the country running it. Yeah, he's the subject of Bad Boy Billionaires on Netflix. So he was in jail in India, and I was running the most famous hotel in the world. and it was landmarked indoors and out. So that was a real challenge, but it was something that that was another one of those really risky things where it was right before I had kids, and it was one of those, like, most famous hotel in the world, you're going to take a pay cut. There's a huge union situation. Your boss is in jail. There's a really good shot that this could end up in total disaster. Let's do it. Like, let's go. And, I just charged the mountain, was like, this is too cool to pass up. This is too cool to pass up. I mean, the Plaza had gone through that big condo conversion. Mayor Bloomberg stopped the whole thing from getting converted. And we were able to go in there and create the food hall, which became the most successful food hall in the world. We were doing 11,000 a foot in sales. We had guys down there. We had Lady M Cakes was in 170 square feet, and they were doing 2.3 million square feet a year out of 170 square feet. They were selling crepe cakes that they weren't even making there. They had no event. They were just selling $8 slices of cake with a 50-person line. It was wild.
Wow.
But when I came in there, you could roll a bowling ball down the hallway and not hit anybody. The previous owner, his wife was a jewelry designer, so he put all these jewelry stores down there, and no one was in there buying jewelry. And I saw that there was a gap in the market, being that it was, Central Park South, Fifth Avenue, and Madison, which, they call kind of the retail H. The cost of real estate was so high in that H, restaurants couldn't survive. I mean, you have Patek and Rolex and Cartier and Tiffany. That's what's in that strip, paying $3,000 a foot in rent. $3,000 a foot in rent. The top 10 highest leases in the world were all on that strip. So if you're a restaurant, what are you charging for a burger to be able to compete with, a $50,000 Patek watch? So that's where I saw a gap in the market and said, we have this lower level basement space. And I had to convince our lender, Bank of China, to trust me on it, that we're going to take out these jewelry stores and we're going to do a whole bunch of restaurants, and let's see what happens. And it was a hit. And then we took Palm Court, which was tired. That's where the Eloise portrait was, because Eloise, the cartoon girl that lives at the Plaza. And, it's this amazing room. And you have Donald Trump and Macaulay Culkin in the room in Home Alone 2 and all of that. And we had this old crushed velvet furniture that was terrible and dated, and there was no bar. And I had to create the bar to make it look like it was from 1906, because the rest of the room was landmarked like 1906. Okay. And modernize the furniture and modernize the uniforms. And it's just one of those things. So to answer the question, it was tough, because I did that, and 80% of people were like, you have done an incredible thing, and this room is so much better. And, it's not just a place where tourists go and take pictures next to the Christmas tree. And 20% of people are in tears that I decimated their memories. And, I used to have tea with my grandmother at that table. And why did you change the chairs out that were falling apart? And anytime you go into a historic property like that, you're going to have a balanced bag, and you can do it with all best intentions and integrity. But if 80% of the people are happy with it, and now there's people in there that are, feeding their families and paying their bills, well, you got to take it as a win, even if some people wish that crushed velvet furniture was still there and it still looked like it was 1960 in the space.
Yeah. As I just mentioned earlier, you can't please everybody. You're not going to do it. So the Fort Worth Food Hall you developed won Best New Restaurant by Fort Worth Magazine. What do you think makes a food hall successful in today's market?
Today's market, I mean, when we did that one, and then we did the one at AT&T, I did the Plaza, I did the one in Jersey City. But food halls, people need to be able to see everything immediately. Lines of sight needs to be wide open. But for the current market, you really need to get towards a central kitchen. Food halls are built for speed. So when we did the one at AT&T, we did Texas Tech's 100th anniversary 2 years ago. We had 6,000 people there. It was a $750,000 night. And we had no problem with that. That was all speed. We had 17 kitchens, 17 counters. Everyone's lined up. It's great. The problem with the food halls, it's not built to go slow. It's speed only. It's speed, speed, speed. We never anticipated when we developed that one, COVID. We never imagined. It was 7,000 employees at the AT&T campus. They own Time Warner. They were going to do 300 events a year with Harry Potter and Game of Thrones and, all of their HBO assets and Time Warner assets. And then they sold it. They sold it to DirecTV. They sold to DirecTV and that to Discovery Network. So it was one of those things that it became a tougher a tougher model because it's only built to go one speed. It's a car and a drag strip. That kind of a concept is built to rip, but it has a high burn rate. If you have multiple kitchens and all of those chefs are getting paid a certain fixed amount, just by the time you've turned it on and can serve someone a side of fries and a Diet Coke, your burn rate's tremendous. So it's something that we pivoted to a model that's similar to what I did at Todd English Food Hall, where you can order with the menu from all the stations and it's one central kitchen. So I'm able to control that labor burn better than if it was all sub operators, all of which have to be able to cover their, daily expenses and then pay rent and then profit. So I'd say in the post-COVID world, a traditional food hall no longer works except for a few rare locations, like a downtown Philly, like a downtown Manhattan. Food halls are a numbers game. It's a quantity game. You're not going to get the check average at food halls. Food halls, people, when it's counter service, it can be the best Wagyu cheeseburger. They're still only going to pay so much for it. You're not going to be able to push check average in food hall. So it's going to be about quantity. And if you don't have the quantity, it's a rough burn rate.
So Hospitality Alliance has been involved in some transformative projects, like I said, including, hospitality and real estate are constantly evolving. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in repositioning spaces, and how did you overcome them?
The city governments are a real challenge. When you're coming into a project where someone else has done it wrong and now you're the cleanup crew, you kind of end up paying for the sins of the last guy. I certainly have that now. We just took over the 50,000 square foot anchor at Toyota Music Factory. We're right across the street from where Wells Fargo is moving 6,000 people. And it's a project that was done in 2017. And, the last developer did it in a way that the city really didn't like. So the city just wrote a $33 million check for us and a couple of others to really transform the property with us as kind of the anchor. But now we're answering to the city and the city very much having been burned by the last guy. You're coming in new, but they still have, you're paying for that. So I think the political aspect of that, dealing with something similar on a project I've been working on for 6 years in Southlake. Heinz did the original one on that. And Heinz, it's 15% of our town. So it's this massive, massive development. They did a whole ton of single family homes and they absolutely killed it. And at the end of it was supposed to be this 50-acre commercial development zone where they were supposed to do restaurants and all this service retail. Well, they didn't want to do that. They killed it on the single family homes. So they got the approval to do the whole thing. They left the 50-acre site and they punted on it and sold. And now you get back in front of City Hall and City Hall is like, yeah, we let you do those single family homes if you were going to do the park and the retail and the library. And now it's 3 developers later. And each time you get back in front of city council and they've been burned now twice, and it's that much harder to make the economics work. Because again, so I think on those big projects, when you get both appointed and elected officials involved and the community involved, and they're not real estate people and they're trying to, you're trying to educate them what the economics look like, it can be a real challenge. And again, especially when you're being judged based on what someone else did 8 years ago that really upset city council and the neighbors. And you're like, we're the cleanup guys. Like, we're not the ones that made the problem. We're the ones showing up with the trash bags and, and the scrub brushes. But yeah, I think that's the biggest one. And you just have to, bite down on your mouthpiece and keep going. I mean, we had ones that we were one day before opening. This was 2 weeks ago. And the health inspector came in and didn't like that our bar sinks had 2-inch handles and not 3-inch handles, and was going to shut us down before a huge event that night. I'm like, you've been approving these handles for 7 years. It's Friday night. I will get the right handles on Monday, but the hardware store is closed. Can we open? Like, weren't you the health inspector last year? 2 weeks ago, you were the health inspector. But now that I'm the new guy, I got to have the 3-inch handles that the bartender can close with their elbows as opposed to their hand. Now it's an absolute catastrophe. You're like, oh gosh. So that's I think the most challenging thing when you get into these big, because anytime you're doing a big mixed use development like that, the government's going to be involved, and it's going to take time. And when it's time and government's involved, you're probably going to be working on it long enough that you're also going to change over. You're going to have a new city council. Well, those people voted for it on their 2-year term. Now it's my 2-year term. You're working on a 5-year project. You're going to have 3 different city councils, and each one of them is responsible to their constituents. So they're going to want to have their thumbprint on it. So you're going back in front of council again. So I think that's the biggest one. When anytime you're doing the big ones, it takes time. I think most people in my sector, most people in any sector, don't understand the amount of time it takes to do a big project. It's years, where people that'll spend, a year at a particular job. Like, I've been on projects for 6 years and haven't made $1 on them. And it's one of those things that, you get into that project and it opens and everyone be like, wow, that guy's really lucky. And, that for him to get that deal, it's like, that takes being a pit bull with a bone for 6 years and just being like, I'm hanging on to this thing because I see that there's an opportunity here, and I'm gonna ride this wave, and I'm gonna ride it as long as it takes to get to where we want to get to.
Yeah, I was complaining about there was this. It's not mixed use, but it's a multifamily development in this one section of Philadelphia, close to where I'm from, and they started building. And it literally took them close to 4 years. And I think it's somewhere of only maybe it's less than 50 apartments in the building, but it took them like 4 years. And I guess I'm not going to complain, because that could have been something that was holding them up. I don't know. It could have been city council, the person in that district or whatever that decided to, slow up their process. Or it could have been just like you're saying, the inspector comes in, you got this inspector today that says, yeah, this is fine right here. Then you get another inspector, nope, that's not how it's done. And I've seen it myself. So yeah.
Like we're saying before with San Francisco, it's like you just have to make a judgment call of what's worth your time, what's worth the investment in time. You can only work on so many projects. If something's going to take you 5 years, you better really love it. And you better really think that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is worth all you're going to put in to get there, because it is. You can only work on so many projects, and that's one of the things where, like, moving to Dallas or going to the markets where, again, young people are, where demographics are going to trend, because it is going to be a labor of love. It is going to be years. It is going to mean an opportunity cost of some of these things you don't want to, some of these things you want to do you can't do because you're so tied up on this project. Well, is it worth it? Is it worth it to be on this thing for 5 years? And most of the times, again, where I've done these projects and people are like, I was with the Spurs for 5 years to do that project. I was with the Plaza for 4 years to do that one. I was with Dream Downtown. I actually stayed there with my family last weekend. It was incredible because I opened that property 15 years ago. That was 4 years of my life. Now working on Toyota Music Factory. This has been 3 years. But I believe in it. And if you want to do anything where you're going to make real wealth or really change something, you need to commit and jump off that diving board knowing this is going to be, a 3-year thing. And I'm going to commit to it for 3 years, because the turnaround on that kind of a thing isn't going to be 6 months. you develop a multifamily property in a market that's on the up, that's up and coming. Well, it's going to take some time and you're going to have to grind it, but that's how you're going to get there. If you want to get to the point where 20, 30 years from now, friends and family are going, how the heck did you get that thing? How do you have that foresight? It's not just foresight, it's grinding, it's grit. It's seeing it through, and that's what buying low, selling high is. It's like we're doing the one at Toyota Music Factory early in the sense that Wells Fargo is moving 6,000 people across the street in September. Well, I've been on it for 2 years. If I was signing that lease right now, my lease would be double what it was 2 years ago. Wow. I signed a 20-year lease, but it's the problem with being early is you're early.
Yeah.
If it's a 20-year lease, that's going to be 2 years of, I'm early. And hopefully, 3-4 years of I'm right on time. And the rest of it, like, wow, you bought low, sold high,
Exactly. I got in at the right time.
You're
looking like a genius, but heck, it may have taken 10 years for it to, get there, but hey, you're there.
And you're floating it and you're in this neighborhood before it's coming and you bought it well and you renovated it well and you're covering some losses, but the trends are moving and, it's commitment to that sort of a thing. Because I think particularly in real estate, it's funny, just having come back from New York and seeing all that's happened with Hudson Yards and that
wow,
the state is disconnected. The time of construction disconnects reality from the market. And I think that's where, to be ahead of it, you have to think about things like demographics or what are the other things, what's the weatherman looking at of like, don't grab your umbrella, once your head is already wet. Like, see the storm clouds, see what's going on with the pressure, because real estate, like looking at Hudson Yards, it's like, yep, everyone in New York was all in on these projects. They did a massive overhaul of all the stuff around Grand Central. Now these towers are twice the size, tens of billions invested in the Hudson Yards, just as COVID's hitting, just as New York takes a hit, just as people are leaving a lot of office buildings. Well, great. Now there's, 15 million more square feet of office space because, that's always seems to be the trend with New York. You go to a town and there's not enough hotels. There's one hotel and the rates are through the roof. Well, let's develop a hotel and 5 other people have the same idea. Now you go from 1 hotel to 6, and they're all nearly empty. And it always seems like real estate follows that trend because everyone goes at the same moment. Like, wow, that lousy hotel is always booked at great rates. I could do a lousy hotel too. And I'm also going to be booked. We're like, yeah, well, 5 other guys had the same idea. So if you're just the same script that everyone else is, looking at the same things, getting your news from the same paper everyone else is reading, you're going to be behind.
Yes.
So it's like, how are you going to think a little bit more advanced? How are you? And that's some of the stuff where I get so much into the demographics. What's happening? What's the underlying tone? Why San Antonio? Why Cedar Rapids? Why Tulsa? Why Knoxville? And being ahead of it, because that's how you buy low, sell high, is by going zigging when they're zagging.
Absolutely, being there when no one else is there.
Exactly right. And then 15 years later, everyone will be like, you were some kind of some kind of a future planner psychic.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I was just reading different tea leaves that others weren't looking at or weren't willing to dig to find. Because the easy ones are right in front of you. It's the harder ones you got to dig for a little bit.
Totally.
But you look at your Warren Buffetts, that's what they've done their whole career. Is, they're going left when everyone's going right. That's how you get value. If you say, this is still fundamentally sound, even if the market's panicking. Okay, well, go in and prepare for a bumpy ride. But that's how you're going to make real wealth.
Yeah, and that's just how he did it. You're right. So now, with the rise of experiential dining and entertainment, driven spaces, how do you see the future of mixed use hospitality developments?
Again, I think it comes down to what people need. And to me, as things go more AI, as people work more remote, people have a carnal need to interact with each other. So people need people. And that's where I think the hospitality sector is going to be kind of AI proof in the sense that we're not going to go virtual. People are going to need that touch, that shared experience. At the low end side, it's just having plates that people share and you're eating what I'm eating. And on the high end side, things by courses. And again, even if we're not sharing from the same plate, you're having the same course that I'm having. Do you think it's spicy? Do you think it's salty? Do you think it's sweet? Do you think it's, and having people having these shared experiences and creating memories together. And that's really what it's about, where, people don't talk to each other the way they used to. People aren't social the way they used to be. Gen Z is the quietest, most antisocial. Putting my foot in my mouth, but it's a lot of social media. They're not used to interacting with each other. When they're going out on a first date, I want to design that place to make the first date a success. Be like, yep, they were making guacamole at the side of the table, and then we had a shared picture of this, and then we had a thing of tacos, and you're having this one, and I'm having that one, and I don't know what to talk about, but whoever designed this restaurant gave us 5 things to talk about right here. So it's like, and I don't know why, I just really like that place. They're like, yeah.
No, but that is great though, because you have to do those things, like you said. I mean, Gen Z, I mean, they're just different breed. But anyway, not knocking you, Gen Z. If there's any of you listening, probably not. But anyway,
all apologies to Gen Z.
Yeah. No, because here's
from Gen X to you. All apologies, Gen Z.
There you go. So, because I'll never forget, my wife and I, we went out to eat this restaurant, and 4 of them came in to eat, and they all sat down, and immediately they were all on their phones. And I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, are you seeing this? Like, they all came in here together, and they're not conversating. But if you build something that will entertain them, then at that point, the socializing begins. Yeah,
exactly right. And you're giving them a shared experience. You're eating what I'm eating. You're drinking what I'm drinking. What do you think of it? Like, you're making it very easy. Oh, wow, they did that table side. Huh, that was interesting. Like, what do you think of that? You're breaking the ice over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the success of, Tao Group, most successful restaurant group in the country. It's a huge part of their formula, recognizing, again, it's listening to what people need, as opposed to giving them what you think should be out there. It's, you have to listen first. What does this community need? These people, they don't know how to date each other. They talk back and forth on social media. They sit down for a date, and you're like, well, okay, we'll help you out here. We're going to give you a great date. Yeah. And it's not because your steak was cooked perfectly. I want your steak to be cooked perfectly, but that's not as important as some of the other things of them being like, I just really like that place. I'm like, yeah, well, there was a lot of thought and planning that went into you liking that place that much and having that great date.
Right.
Or having that double date where 2 people know each other well and the other 2 don't. And now, you have a really awkward meal. And we're like, well, we're going to make it not awkward. We're going to make the whole thing fun.
Yeah, make it fun for all. Absolutely.
And designing the spaces for lines of sight so everyone can see everybody, and the energy of the space and all those sorts of things as well play into it.
Okay. Yeah.
That stuff starts from the first day. I'm looking at a project next to Texas A&M right now, and we're already thinking about those kinds of things. All right, we got college kids, we got grads, we got parents. How are they going to interact? Where's the sun setting? Because, you don't want to be getting cooked in the Texas A&M sun at dinner time. Is the sun in our back? Is the sun in front of us? Do we have shade? Do we not? How does the room lay out? So all those things, and I involve my team in the planning process, not for them to give input, but them to understand once they're operating the dining room, 2 years ago, that decision was made, and understanding what you're going for. Whereas, you think of all the times people want to do a big shared menu where people can have that family style experience. And then they, but in the early parts of design, they did these tiny tables because they wanted to fit more tables. And now you're trying to do that kind of a menu and there's no room on the table and you're moving salt shakers and this and everyone's putting this stuff back. You're like, yeah, you made that decision 3 months before you open. But reality is that train had left the station 18 months ago. You already said you wanted 40 tables in here, and you only really have room for 32 if you want to do the menu you want to do.
There you go.
So that's why it's important to have the align vision as early as possible.
Okay, got it. So
to know what port you're sailing to before you leave for the journey.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So, as the CEO of Hospitality Alliance, what's your leadership philosophy when managing large-scale projects and teams?
My philosophy is, so as I mentioned, I've given I haven't given any of the company to investors or to partners, but I have my management team all on profit share based on their revenue center. So so a big part of my leadership is involving people in everything, being very transparent, and having everyone on the management team be on profit share based on their revenue center. So beverage director on the beverage program, chef on the food program, front of house manager on the overall experience. So they can see how they succeed in a very transparent way. And they're participating and having their buy-in and giving them shares in those sub businesses that they're in control of, and not penalizing them by ones that they're not. I've seen people do it where they'll do, 5 points of up to 1 point of down to the adjacent departments to create more of a accountability among departments, which is something I think I'd be open to exploring. But that's generally my leadership style. I'm very, very open. I involve everybody in everything. And usually that's been successful. I had spoken in a lot of conferences, and I realized I wasn't speaking a lot to my own team. So I also do a 16-week course every summer for my own team, where I teach for them 2 or 3 hours a day. I do one on Tuesday and one on Wednesday, and they're the same session, but it lasts 16 weeks, where I teach about economics or design or the legal or operating a nightclub or operating in a hotel or food trends or market trends. Because again, it was something that I realized I was hoping my people were going to organically advance up the ladder by doing the work. And I realized that was not efficient or the right way to look at it. It's like, I know these things. Why don't I just teach them? So that's where I created the course 6 years ago. And now I do it every year and try to, and tap the different departments for each one. My COO and my ops team, we're talking ops. My beverage team, we're talking beverage. My culinary team, we're talking culinary, and so on. But trying to help everybody really see a path. So I found, particularly with young people, like we're talking Gen Z, I think they value the path more than necessarily compensation. They need to see the path. The path is very, and that's something that I try to instill in them of, there's no wrong answer as to what you want to do, but where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10? Where do you want to be in 15? How do we back into that? What's the step you can take right now to get there in 15? And recognizing that's going to change, but right now that's where you see yourself in 15. And if it changes, it's probably going to change a little, not massively, but it's something of being accountable, giving them a path towards achieving what they want to, as far as an income level and as far as a role level.
I think that's huge that you have that for your employees and that you're teaching it. The CEO is coming in, he's teaching it, and he's also, his other C-suite and heads of various departments are coming in teaching it as well. And that brings, to me, that just kind of brings down the wall a little bit. And then it also provides, like you said, that path. They can start to see that path forward.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, man, how time has flown. But as we start to wrap up this interview, just have a couple of final questions for you. In your experience, what separates a good hospitality concept from a truly great one?
I think it's listening. Are you giving them what you want, or are you giving them what they want? So much hospitality has so much ego. I make the best burger. I make the best pizza. Just ask my friends. Trust me. The market's just not hearing me. I can't believe the reviewer didn't experience what I wanted them to experience. Why aren't you seeing it the way I see it? Listen. I think that's the primary thing, is you see so many of these guys with brand standards, and at the end of the day, it's ego. They are putting out what they want to put out and not listening first. I know better than you. You're going to love it. Why don't you love it as much as the one I did 20 miles away? They love it there. Like, you're not listening.
Right.
So I think number one is listening, recognizing that, again, if you're giving people what they want, if you're providing a service to the community, in that this is something that, people need this third space, the one we just did in Victory Park. People are hanging out there with their laptops and taking business meetings. That's what they needed. Give them what they need and then back into that concept. So I think that's the differentiator.
Awesome. So what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur looking to break into hospitality, real estate, or sports marketing?
Fundamentals. You can't do anything without fundamentals. Go someplace where you're going to learn with a great mentor. I mean, it's about early in your career, it's about mentorship and it's about fundamentals. Buy $10 books on Amazon and read them. That's how I taught myself about wine. I now teach our wine courses. I knew nothing about wine. I mean, I didn't grow up drinking wine. My family wasn't drinking wine, but I was buying a wine list 6 years ago to set up a fine dining restaurant. I realized I had to pay someone to tell me what wine to buy for my wine list. I had to pay a som. I'm like, I'm never doing that again. Amazon has books for $10. I went to Amazon, started buying $10 books, reading them. And then I went to Costco and bought some wine and started doing wine tasting. And I'm sitting there in COVID reading wine books and doing wine tasting with my wife. And now I teach all of our wine courses, and all of our people that are certified have been taught by me because of my Amazon books. Like, the mentorship is there. The mentorship is there, and it's not expensive, and it's achievable. It's more achievable and more accessible than it's ever been before. So I'd say, if you want to break in, find a great mentor. Anyone I can think of that's done something great in business, you can find times at the early parts of their career where someone helped them accelerate up that curve, where they weren't just out there with a machete hacking their way through the jungle, figuring their path, where there was someone that said, you know what, I'm going to take you 5 miles ahead. And now you can take out the machete. But these first 8 years, these first 3 years, I'm going to accelerate you. You're going to be moving at 100 miles an hour, not 30, because I know exactly what the path is. And that's how, and again, you need the fundamentals. You need to understand what investment is, what returns are, what investors want to see, what's a reasonable thing to spend, all of those sorts of things, whether it's accounting or banking, or you need the financial building block. You need to fundamentally understand what business is before you can get into it. So that's what I would say. Anyone breaking into just about anything, understand the numbers first. Then you can get creative. Then you can, start doing some fun things. But first, you got to understand that building block.
Well, Kevin, it has been a blast having you as our guest today. As we close out, please tell our listeners where we can learn more about you, get in touch with you, and learn about all the fabulous things you have going on right now.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. HospitalityAlliance.com. We're opening up Toyota Music Factory in Las Colinas, right next to the big Live Nation venue, and Victory Social in Victory Park, right down the block from where the Mavs are playing. So come check us out and say hi.
Awesome. Kevin, again, I want to thank you for your time today, and all the wisdom you have provided to our listeners is greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you, our fans, for tuning into the Service to Syndication podcast, where we want to provide value to you and your investing business. Please tune in to our next episode, where we will interview another fantastic investing professional. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Service to Syndication podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate your support, and we are grateful about being a part of your journey to becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will get a lot out of what you just heard. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be in all areas of life. And if this was really valuable, share it on your social media stories and timelines. Thank you for watching and listening. Now go be great.